Hey kids, it's Jurassic James. This is Jurassic James Explains. We're talking about raptors. Okay, so I already did a video on the Deinonychus itself, the actual species and all the toys. I could do one on Velociraptor, the Utahraptor later on, but today we're looking at the group of the family. That being said, I first must tell you that the name raptor means a bird of prey. So actually, it's like bald eagles and Galapagos falcons. These are raptors. You know, any hawk, falcon, those guys are raptors. The term raptor got really popular in the 90s, and I'll tell you why later in the talk. But in general, I want to point out that the proper term, proper name for these guys are Dromaeosaur. Dromaeosaur means running lizard. And here's the big deal. Early in 1800s, they were, well, not in the late 1800s, they were digging up dinosaurs in North America and Europe, and they're all finding 15-foot, 20-foot, 30-foot long animals. So in 1914, Barnum Brown finds the first skeleton that we would consider a Dromaeosaur, and well, recognized as Dromaeosaur. It was named in 1922. Now, the ironic part is Dromaeosaur is a very well-known dinosaur in paleontology, but there's actually very few fossils of it. There's many copies of it in other museums, very few fossils. Likewise, there are very few toys. I don't have an official Dromaeosaurus figure. I just have this one here that is a raptor-like animal that's not labeled as any of the other known raptors. So I'm using it as a proxy for Dromaeosaurus right here. So what's the big deal? They were small dinosaurs. This guy would be about 6.5 feet long, and it was found in Alberta, hence the name Dromaeosaurus albertaensis in 1922, and it's the first of that group, basically. And they were kind of like nobodies. I mean, they were interesting, but not really well known. Well, in 1923, the American History Museum went to Mongolia, and they found what we now know as Velociraptor. It was named in 1924, and Velociraptor they found a really crushed skull. And again, a dinosaur that's name was made. It was a small 6-foot animal, well, estimated to be 5 to 6 feet long, and it kind of just sat in obscurity. Fast forward to the 1960s, and John Ostrom, if you don't know paleontology or history of paleontology, John Ostrom is like the Qui-Gon Jinn of paleontology, because he's someone who trained the people we know now, like Dr. Bacher was one of his students, basically. And in the 1960s, they found the Deinonychus, which means terrible claw. Again, I've done a video on the Deinonychus already. But the idea with this animal in particular is that it was, about that tall, about 4 or 5 feet tall, well, 4 feet tall, right under 10 feet long. This animal was not a big lizard. What I'm saying is the view of theropod or predatory dinosaurs was they were giant lizards, and the Deinonychus was not that. It was small, had many bird-like features, and it really helped change the idea of dinosaurs being these cold-blooded, slow monsters to more like these bird-like animals. And that was really a big deal because, one, they still see T-Rex in the movies as this giant lumbering beast, but we're saying they weren't all that huge. They weren't all that aggressive, right? So fast forward to they found it in the early 60s. The paper was published in 69, I believe, about the Deinonychus. And then walks in Jurassic Park. So, if you don't know the story there, Michael Crichton was writing the book about Jurassic Park, and his idea was, how can you have, it was a college student, trying to do the technology to make dinosaurs, like 1 or 2 dinosaurs, and he was like, how do you pay for that? And it's like, oh, entertainment. So it became a theme park and so on and so forth. So when looking at the name for the animal for the book, the raptor in the book, the idea was, I think it was Gregory Paul, who had suggested in his book Predatory Dinosaurs that the species of the Deinonychus found in North America was actually a genus of Velociraptor, and that's why Crichton went that direction. So when you see the movies, Blue and Clever Girl, they're technically considered to be Deinonychus, but they're called Velociraptor because Deinonychus at the time was the largest dromaeosaur, about this tall, and it would have been the biggest dromaeosaur known. But it turns out in 1975, the very first Utahraptor was found. And Utahraptor, for some reason, no one cared. It was like they found a few bones and no one cared of this possible large dromaeosaur. It wasn't until 1990, 1 and 2, where it was revisited. They found more specimen, and of course, James Kirkland is the one most known for this. I think the key name of the paper of naming it Utahraptor, basically. So, kind of back in our time, the Velociraptor we know. I mean, initially it would have been like this. This is a safari, just general lizard-like thing. What's really important is the skull, because a lot of times the raptor toys, their skulls, well, when I draw a dinosaur or any kind of paleo art of a vertebrate, I often look at the skeleton. I'll find a picture of the skeleton, or I'll see a skeleton in person in the museum, and I'll draw with the skeleton outline, all the bones. So I'll draw how the skull dips down right there. There's two little horns or little crest-like things from the eye. That's very important too. So this guy kind of shows that initial view of Velociraptor. Jurassic Park, of course, had their own interpretation. I call them leather tigers. Imagine a tiger, but covered in leathery skin and 2 feet, and that's what you're seeing there. But of course, now Velociraptor, like many dromaeosaurs, thought to have feathers, so this model will be typically the most accurate of these three. So that's what we're seeing in the movie. Now, do you know in Jurassic Park they have the raptors? They're smart as like chimps or dolphins or smarter. No, so raptors aren't that smart. It's actually increased intelligence of brain size. It's kind of an anomaly. Today we see it in humans, chimps, and dolphins, but it's not very normal to have a large brain. And the idea of large brains, if you were a life form, an organism, your job is to eat, possibly sleep, and reproduce yourself, basically. And the idea is that there's often no evolutionary advantage to knowing the astronomy of the stars or chemistry or, so for most animals, they don't need huge brains because for humans, for example, our brain is like 2% of our mass. It's very light as an organ, but it takes like 20 to 25% of our energy intake. It's the power of the brain alone. Now it makes sense because your brain powers and operates your body, but the idea for most animals, having a huge brain would be beneficial. So when we say raptors are smart, they're smart by dinosaur standards. And even then we can't really measure that because Neanderthals, for example, have bigger brains than humans, our species. So there's a thing called the EQ, so it's the brain size to body ratio. So yeah, even though the Diplodocus brain is about as big as my fist, but the animal is like, this torso is bigger, almost bigger than this room, right? Whereas a troodon, which troodons are considered to be by many the smartest, especially in dinosaur train, because they have very large brains, and they're actually like raptor cousins. I'll give you the example that a dromaeosaur is like a wolf, and troodons are like coyotes. They're very similar, they're close related, but they're different though. But the idea is that troodons have the biggest brains to body ratio in dinosaurs, so therefore they're the smartest. But again, for the raptor group or dromaeosaur group, their brains are bigger than most dinosaurs compared to their bodies. That's why they kind of stand out. But the Velociraptor itself and that's why the name raptor became a public idea for that group. Because again, when you tell most people before 1993 the word raptor, most of them who knew anything about zoology thought about birds of prey like these guys here. But now when you hear the word raptor, people instantly think of these guys. But so my friends, that raptor evolution. So my friends, the word raptor is just slang. Dromaeosaur is a proper term for these guys. Now, with the Deinonychus itself, like I said, here's the general, like the old school model. This is from Bullyland, the company. This guy is one you see in dollar stores and like Walmart. It is one of the worst Deinonychus. Okay, I'll say it this way. If you have this figure, if you like this figure, it makes you happy, good. As far as scientific teaching, I wouldn't use this one because this guy is really bulky. Raptors, there's a lot of paleo art debates about when people draw these dinosaurs or any creature and how they look. The interpretation is very different. So so the idea is that we draw them like very skin tight animals, but it could be a bulky animal. But in general, we think raptors are more lightweight based on their form. So this guy being very bulky and featherless, it would not work. The newest version of Deinonychus I found is this safari guy here, which looks like I just updated my webpage on the birds, and like it looks like a bird to me. I don't know, which is the goal, right? And also the word raptor in Jurassic Park was to push the idea of the bird-like concept. Even though Dr. Bacher and Ostrom had the idea out there, it was in academic circles. It wasn't until Jurassic Park where the idea of these guys being bird-like and fast and swift really took off, basically, because of the movie, of course, because we all follow movies, right? So the question is, well, Deinonychus is the largest raptor when the movie comes out, or at least known when it's being written. Why didn't use Deinonychus? Again, Utahraptor. Utahraptor was discovered in 1990. Well, officially, it was uncovered in 1975. It was recognized really in 1991, but it really didn't get named until 1993. So the idea that the movie already came out by the time, I bet my bottom dollar that if they had this guy's name and information before the movie came out, it would have been this guy in the movie because they wanted a big animal. Now, one thing to point out here with Deinonychus with Utahraptor is that this one is actually from like Target. They have this is brand called Terra, and I think it screams somehow, somewhere here. Oh, the battery's dying now. Great. So the idea is that if you saw BBC Walking with Dinosaurs, the one from like the 1999, they show Utahraptors in I think it's Portugal or Spain. I think the Iberian Peninsula, and they show them there. And I'm like, I remember as a kid, like, why would Utahraptors be? If they're Utahraptors, why are they in Europe? But I didn't, but they're showing there was a representative of a Dromaeosaur possibly. So again, you have what you call, I call the skinless raptor. Here's the safari little baby raptor from the baby tube, dinosaur baby tube. And so that's the idea of them. Of course, now, because we see many Dromaeosaurs with feathers, this is kind of what we see nowadays. This kind of new form of the feathered, winged, but not flying Dromaeosaur. This guy here actually went to a, is it Papo or Schley? Papo, they don't actually, no, Schley. They actually don't put the name of their figure on the stomach. And when people ask me why not, I always say jokingly that, oh, they're so high in paleontology that if you don't know the name, you shouldn't bother. Kind of like if you go to a restaurant and there's no prices, you're like, if you shouldn't be there if you don't know can't afford it. So I remember I went to the store and I saw this guy, and it's a baby Dromaeosaur, and I was like, well, I mean, who could it be? Velociraptor had that little dent in the face, so it goes down. The Deinonychus doesn't get rid of any toys. Dromaeosaurus has no toys I'm aware of. If you know of one, put it in a comment, please. Link or something. So I remember thinking what it could be. So I went to the toy store place, like the counter, and said, hey, you guys have any idea what this figure is? I mean, inventory-wise. And they were like, oh, I don't know. They pulled a big book out and they were going through it. They couldn't find it. And they were saying it was Archaeopteryx, the early bird. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's not Archaeopteryx. I'm pretty sure it's a Dromaeosaur because of the way that, And they're like, oh, no, like I'm pretty sure it's Archaeopteryx, sir. And I'm like, okay. And I realized it was like a wall. So, and I didn't like, do you know who I am? I'm Jurassic James. I didn't do that. So, the idea was very simple. I just said, okay, cool, thank you. And I bought it. And I looked it up online and found out it's Utahraptor, baby. I'm not sure. I don't know of. Please tell me in the comments if they found baby or hatchling size Utahraptors. I know they find a lot of like juveniles and up, but it's the biggest Dromaeosaur known as of right now. And there are many others. There's one called Dakotaraptor who's a little smaller. This guy's about 20. The biggest Utahraptor known, or at least estimated, is 23 feet long. There's one called Dakotaraptor who's a little bit shorter, but that one's being debated right now. So, moving forward to 2003 in China, Liaoning, China in particular, we find Microraptor. Now, the word raptor again has been thrown around a lot, but the idea is that this guy would be like this big. The real animal would be like this big, and it was probably called the first four-winged dinosaur because they actually have the two wings here and they have two like these like bell-bottom like leg feathers. And dinosaurs, not counting, well, non-avian dinosaurs, which are birds, birds can fly, many birds can fly. Avian dinosaurs are birds, right? Non-avian dinosaurs are like these guys. So officially, no non-avian dinosaur can fly. Microraptor cannot fly, according to, well, the paper says yes, but most people say no. So what I always tell people is, it's like it's falling with style. Remember Toy Story with Buzz Lightyear? He's falling with style. Yeah. So they kind of glide really well, but they're not having power like take off from the ground flight, right? And Microraptor is considered a Dromaeosaur, but I want to point out that within Dromaeosaur, there's like subfamilies and subgroups and stuff too. So it's more than I'm showing you right now. I'm keeping it kind of simple today. But in general, you're seeing that there's different branches, and it gives us a lot of raptors out there. I mean, all over the world, well, all over the Northern Hemisphere, so Europe, well, North America, and Asia for sure. But again, these are the ones that are really popular. The Dromaeosaurs, the name of the family, Velociraptor, Deinonychus, Utahraptor, and Microraptor are the most toy friendly. I must also tell you before we go, one more thing, is that the word raptor does not mean Dromaeosaur. So we have an animal called Oviraptor, which means egg thief. The word raptor means thief. So Velociraptor means quick thief or swift thief. Microraptor means small thief. Oviraptor means egg thief. There's a dinosaur who there's no toy of that I'm aware of called Eoraptor, meaning dawn thief. It's one of the first dinosaurs, the earliest dinosaurs. And again, it's not a Dromaeosaur. The Dromaeosaurs are from, as far as we know so far, they're from early Cretaceous to late Cretaceous. They are not any in the Jurassic. There are teeth found in the late Jurassic that people suggest maybe Dromaeosaur ancestry or something, but there's no skeleton found, so it's kind of like But Oviraptor, for example, is a Oviraptor in a different family than Dromaeosaur. There's one also in China called Sinoraptor, and this guy again is not a Dromaeosaur. It's a different branch of predator. I'll put a link to my theropods page, and you'll see where it fits in. But again, that name, it's really popular, it's very hot, so it pops up again and again. But it doesn't mean dromaeosaur. So I'm not trying to decouple the word raptor from these guys. I get it's out there. But if you want to be an informed paleo person, you'd be like, not a raptor, dromaeosaur, kind of thing. That being said, thank you for tuning in. That's the kind of overview. If you want me to do a talk just on Utahraptor or Velociraptor, let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, because if I know you guys like this or you have suggestions or requests, please let me know, and I'll do them, because I don't know what you find interesting. I think these are interesting. That could be super boring, and I'm like, here's my idea on these snails, and you're like, that's boring. So let me know what you find interesting. So I thought raptors would be pretty cool. That being said, Jurassic James out. See you guys later.